Hi, I'm Jason Gorber from ThatShelf.com, and we're here to talk about the Black Crowes recording of Shake Your Moneymaker, released in 1990 and newly released on a deluxe box set.
Big change.
So for those of us that were around in the 1980s, it was a strange time, especially for rock and roll. It was obviously the era of the synthesizers when you had, by the late 70s, even bands like Queen that used to say no synthesizers were used on this record, littering their records in subsequent recordings with a whole bunch of keyboard-based stuff. So guitar rock, the sort of early to mid-70s shtick had certainly waned by that point, incorporating all these elements of new wave, new romantic, and all these other notions. We're just on the verge sort of what was going to be a big backlash to that would come out of grunge, something that I, for one, have spent much time talking about how I was never a huge fan of. But right in that middle period was a retro sound, something that absolutely evoked the likes of Little Feat in particular, but Led Zeppelin was the most obvious and overt reference for those of us that didn't know about some of the other classic rockers, but also that sort of swamp rock vibe that was definitely taking place in the 1970s, things like the Allman Brothers and a little bit of CCR. Certainly bands that would be drawn from to create the Black Crowes. Equally was being drawn upon was soul music, R&B, everybody from Otis Redding, the overt Otis Redding cover, to even James Brown, to Elmore Leonard, to all kinds of other people that could be drawn for in nostalgic reasons, but also create a sound that frankly sounded quite new and refreshing, almost an antidote to some of the more polished stuff that was taking place in the 80s. I see the Black Crowes as really, particularly this record, as really the sort of this standpoint of a transition between what was taking place in the 80s and what would eventually take place in the early 90s, and go on to be a lot of the pop punk and all that stuff, which frankly, as I grew up, I lost interest in as the music industry sort of continued, and I started to look sort of deeper into some of the music that was taking place at the time, and certainly looking backwards. I mean, when you're again, a story I've told many, many times, but when you're presented with Nevermind, as much as people lost their minds for Nirvana, that was the same week I was discovering stuff like Quadrophenia or After the Gold Rush. And if you're picking between those records, I think even Kurt Cobain would probably choose the same one that I picked. When you're in the sort of late teens, early 20s, you become really dogmatic about the music you listen to. Nonetheless, the sort of a tail end of high school for me, this record came out. The first time I heard something like Hard to Handle. And it's one of those great things that when you actually have, your token white rock band introducing you to an entire world of soul music in the same way that in many ways the Rolling Stones and the likes did, of showcasing music that had really been sort of diminished at the time. Eventually this would actually take place in a really phenomenal way with Film Commitments. A bunch of Irish people, again, looking back towards the Otises and the Arethas and all these other moments. I can absolutely look to the Blues Brothers, Commitments, and even the Black Crowes as a way, as my sort of initial introduction into this incredible music that was coming out of Stax Atlantic, Motown, Chess, and the like, in the 1960s, early 70s. And so, yeah, we can decry about the appropriation of some of this music. We decry about how many of these artists absolutely were steamrolled, but in so many ways, the way that pop music works is that if you find something that you like, if you have the eyes and the ears to actually be able to see where it came from, who they were listening to, what their influences were, if you find something you love and you know where it comes from, you can find some really tremendous stuff. And all hail to the originators. Again, you look at the Robinsons, from the Black Crowes, and they will absolutely hold them up as something they were celebrating as opposed to stealing or ripping off from. Nonetheless, when they actually had their debut, their debut came out in 1990. This is their debut record, Shake Your Moneymaker. Here it is on vinyl, re-release of the vinyl. The title on the back, a whole bunch of celebration. It really is that kind of sort of a hooky guitar sound that really worked in a pop idiom as well. Some of these songs are obviously quite long and drawn out sort of jammy stuff, and absolutely the Black Crowes would go in a direction pretty far away from the 3-minute single. But nonetheless, this record is just a lot of fun to listen to, even this this many years later. It's produced by George Drakoulias, who's really interesting for me. I just actually saw the video, the making of Tom Petty's Wildflowers album, which again it was around the same time. And George Drakoulias shows up as a guru, as somebody who just is hanging out with Tom Petty at Sound City in Los Angeles. But, you know, George would show up and actually produce records such as this. He was not just some big oaf who was hanging out with Tom Petty and stuff like that. He did some really interesting musical stuff. And obviously, if you look at Tom Petty is not a huge fan, but nonetheless, here's a guy that actually incorporated a lot of the punk elements, a lot of the guitar rock elements, and found a way to actually find pop superstardom through guitar in a way that, frankly, isn't done as much anymore. Anyway, there's the original. What they've done as, you know, the inevitable anniversary releases is they've come out with a crazy box set. So here's the crazy box set, and it includes not only many items that were recorded at the time, but also a bunch of live concert material. Again, you got the Crowes on the front. You have the complete album, and then you have a homecoming concert from Atlanta, Georgia in December 1990. So this would have been after their initial tour when they actually came back to Atlanta. So again, you have so much in here of this collision between what Atlanta was going to become as it's always been a huge music city, but it really became the sort of touchstone through the 90s. With these guys, with people like R.E.M. who are showing up and from other parts of Georgia, but then obviously the explosion of hip hop and Southern hip hop in particular that took place in Atlanta, and a whole bunch of rock musicians that again were drawing from different aspects of African American culture, African Americans who are drawing from rock culture. It's a whole bunch of stuff going on all at once. But for our own viewing and listening pleasure, I thought I would open this thing. I'm a sucker for these stickers. So, curated by Chris and Rich Robinson from their archive, previously unreleased music, including this Atlanta homecoming concert and Charming Mess, and 4 studio tracks with an exclusive patch, flyer, and tour pass. So let's see what's inside. I will carefully open this up without ripping my beloved sticker, which I'm then going to put on the inside of a box like a lunatic. So again, one of those traditional box sets, 12 by 12 box set, nice and vinyl size. On the inside, a replication of the front cover as per the other recording. As promised, I have a patch. Don't know what the hell I'm going to go do with this. I don't quite have the jean jacket to put it on anymore, but nonetheless, I got a Black Crowes patch. We'll see how that all ends up working. An all-access sticker. Access all areas instead of access all areas. It's excess all areas, which certainly speaks to a lot of their travails and problems with substance abuse that eventually came out. Original 1986 style, looks like a poster and a replication of a set list. I remember posters looking exactly like this, the sort of cut and paste stuff that was taking place around the time period before things got even more generic with everyone's introduction to digital editing software. We have here, I'm going to do this so I don't drop anything. We have a lovely book that includes, as expected, numerous photos, stories about the band. Oh, see, I was even upside down. Sorry about that. Photos of the band, signed elements, replications of all these stuff, all in this sort of soft, stapled book. Would have been nice for it to be hardcover, but it is what it is. Again, Shaker Moneymaker as a sort of tape band on there. And then we have the various records. So here is the original album, looking not dissimilar to the one that I just held up. Twice as Hard, Jealous Again, Sister Luck, Could Have Been So Blind, Seen Things, Hard to Handle, Thick and Thin, She Talks to Angels, just a great song. Stratton Blues, Stare It Cold, and Mercy Sweet Moan, produced by George Drakoulias. There we are. More Money Maker, unreleased songs and B-sides. Charming Mess, 30 Days in the Hole, Don't Wake Me, Jealous Guy. Oh, that'll be interesting. The cover of Jealous Guy. Waiting Guilty, Hard to Handle with Horns Mix. I am a sucker for horns. Jealous Again, the acoustic version. That sounds fun. She Talks to Angels acoustic. She Talks to Angels, Mr. Crow's Garden demo. Sure. And Front Porch Sermon, Mr. Crow's Garden demo. So, you know, more B-sides, more stuff on vinyl. Because why not? Sure, absolutely all digital source, but I don't really care at this point in time. And here's the Homecoming concert. 2 vinyl. A whole bunch of great songs on here. Looks like a full concert. And the boys on the front rocking out the way. There we go. I never actually saw them live, unfortunately. I know they're still sort of kicking around doing their thing. I'm actually going to look here. I am pleased to say that the vinyl itself is actually sleeved properly with a bit of basically a plastic inner sleeve with paper on the outside. It's not just one of those awful paper things that rips the hell out of your record. And yeah, so here we have basically all part of Universal now, but one of the original Def Jam releases, the album label that eventually became American with the upside down American flag. But this ties very much to the whole Rick Rubin vibe of that mixing of cultures, of that mixing of musical idioms, of all those elements that sort of coming together out of this thing that started absolutely as a straight up experiment between Russell Simmons and Rick Rubin, and would eventually become the sort of juggernaut that that became Def Jam American and all the sort of nonsense involved there. I really like this record. I'm really pleased to actually have it. I hope I will be able to enjoy the hell of this live performance in the B-sides, but nonetheless, there's the inside of the new Shake Your Money Maker box set from the Black Crowes, newly released. Thanks so much for watching. Please let us know in the comments what you think of the record, if you think of the addition of this stuff, the nonsense tchotchkes that you get in box sets like this, and what you think of Black Crowes. If you have any great memories of this band, please like the video, subscribe, ring the bell, follow us on social media and all of that nonsens. For thatshelf.com, I'm Jason Gorber. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next video.